Hannah.
And I'm Matt Hanna.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannas,
where we talk about all your favorite scary movies.
And in the wise words of Bodies, 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 today's episode is a podcast about hanging out with your smartest and funniest friend. So we are joined here today by our friend Alex.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Are you sure you're happy to be here? Because today we are talking about the book and film adaptation of American Psycho.
Yeah, I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
And you'll remember, Alex, when we covered
Shutter
Island.
Yes, so we read the book for that as well, which we both liked, which is different from this, where, spoiler alert, we hated it.
And I, once again, did not read the book.
Loser.
Yeah.
Illiterate.
I've read one book this year, and it was a Harry Potter book.
Yeah, well.
No, that's not true. No, that might be true.
That's true. That
might be true.
But he was really ready to pick up the next one, which is
I'm ready.
Pretty great for him. Anyway, American Psycho is a 2000 film written and directed by Mary Harron, based on a novel of the same name by Bret Easton Ellis. And the film stars Christian Bale with a number of very famous supporting actors, including Willem Dafoe, Justin Theroux, and Reese Witherspoon.
And Jared Leto.
Among others.
We don't like Jared Leto, but he's in this movie.
Yeah, I ignored him for a reason. So...
Well, it's all right. It's fun to see him get...
murked. Yeah. Murdered.
Dusted.
Yeah, it's fun because you're there like, he deserves it. But he doesn't, but he's Jared Leto, so it's like nice to see him get an on-screen death, personally.
He gets the shit kicked out of him a lot. That was like a thing. Because like Fight Club, it's like Paul Dano.
Fair, but Paul Dano, like...
He's a better actor.
Yeah. Anyway, enough about Jared Leto. This book came out in 1991, and there began talks to adapt it into a movie within the next year. So right away, David Cronenberg and Brad Pitt became attached to direct and star, and Ellis, who wrote the book, was brought on to write the screenplay. I guess Cronenberg kind of makes sense, but this... I mean, he's a horror director, so...
He's a horror director, but this feels...
it would have
based on what you told me about the book, it doesn't feel to make as much sense. Because he's like a body horror guy, but the body horror in the book seems to be not as purposeful as I think the body horror that Cronenberg usually does. It seems more like torture porn, at least the way you described it, so... Which is not up his alley, in my opinion.
Yeah, the violence in the book, I would say, is extremely gratuitous. Alex and I both were not thrilled by the descriptions of violence.
It was so incredibly detailed and, like, so horrific. It was, like, a level I personally was not expecting in this book, like, at all.
And this is coming from, like, people who listen to a true crime podcasts or, like, watch true crime documentaries. Like...
And, like, I think we've both read, like, other books that would be, like, in the category of, like, horror. It's not, like, that we don't like or have read other things like this before.
Yeah. This just was, like, a new level of...
Like, it sounds like it was effective.
I would say it actually became ineffective because it was just so, like, drawn out. And it would be like, well, then I did this, and then I did that, and then I did that, and then I did that. And it kind of became like I started skimming it. And I could see it kind of being like, we become so unfazed by the violence.
That's what I was going to ask, because everything he does is kind of mundane, so he would describe everything the same way. Like his routine versus his murder seem like they'd be the same in the book.
And see, I could totally like buy into that being purposeful. However, I simply don't want to hear about this man shoving brie cheese up a girl's butt and then shoving a rat up her ass to eat the cheese and her organs.
Yeah, no, that's
I don't
gross.
need that.
Yeah. I guess like how it probably was trying to play in how routine and mundane. Like he described the murders in the same level of detail that he described everything else, but it almost got to the point where it was like torture porn. Like it lost its meaning to me. It was just, I'm trying to like get through this so I can hopefully get to a better part of this book.
Except then, like, that didn't
But
always
there was no better part.
Yeah, like there's a scene where he holds a lighter to a girl's eyeballs until they melt
They like
Gross.
explode.
and like explode, and like she's still alive, and then he does
Yeah.
numerous other things to her body, and then the next day he'll wake up and be like, I don't remember burning her, but like all of her extremities are burnt.
Like there's like organs in like a pan. Like I don't remember
Trying to cook
eating
that,
those, but I guess that happened.
Yeah.
Or like there's just a hand on the floor. It's like I don't remember taking that off, but
Got it.
cool.
Yeah.
So we appreciated the changes that the movie made in terms of the
Yes.
gratuitous violence, and
I
based on what you
Yes.
explained to me, I feel like the decisions the movie made it make more sense and be more like approachable, while still, I think, trying to get the same message across. But
the movie is far, far more approachable than the book.
it seems like it's also more effective.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
we'll
would
get into
agree.
that then.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the background.
So when Ellis was writing that first draft for Cronenberg for the movie, his draft departed from the novel very significantly. He was like, been living with it for like 3.5, 4 years, and like I'm bored here. So he changed a lot, and it ended with an elaborate musical sequence at the World Trade Center.
Love that.
And he did that to show how bored he was with the material. And Cronenberg was like, what the fuck? No. And then asked someone else to do the draft, and then hated that draft even more, and then dropped their project.
Makes sense.
And then it just kind of went through a bunch of changes and development hells. Mary Harron, who ended up writing and directing the film, came on board in 1996. But the issue with that was she had a lot of beef from the studio about who she was going to cast in the film. She had met with several people, and the only person she really felt was a good fit was Christian Bale. She said when auditioning others, she had a feeling that a lot of the actors kind of thought Bateman was cool, but Christian Bale did not.
Okay, so exactly. And that's why he needed to be the one that was cast. Okay,
Yes.
but people gave her a hard time.
Yeah, so the studio really wanted other people. At one point, Leonardo DiCaprio became attached to this, and it was like right post-Titanic.
That would not have
which
worked.
is such a weird casting. And then Leo brought on Oliver Stone, I think it was, to direct. Like, they were matched up. But
That
then
also would not make sense.
eventually Leo, someone convinced him, like, this is a weird career move. Don't do that. Like, you have this fan base of a bunch of, like, young girls who think you're hot. Like, this movie is not a great next step for you. So then he pulled back. So then Mary Harron came back in the picture.
Okay.
So originally she had read the existing drafts, and the only one that she kind of felt any connection to was Ellis's original draft. But she thought his draft was missing the novel's preciseness and depicting social privilege. So she told the studio she would only join the project if she could write the screenplay.
Badass.
Yes.
And they said yes, obviously.
Yes. So she wrote it along with another female, and Lionsgate begrudgingly agreed to hire Christian Bale, but he only got $50,000 for the movie.
Whoa.
This movie had a total budget. Well, originally they said you can have max $10,000. I think the budget ended up for just like the filming and whatnot ended up being around $7.
Holy shit. 7
And like
mil.
yes, and
Holy
there's a
shit.
lot of famous people in this. So
No,
Christian Bale definitely got like the shit end of the stick in salary.
No, but he didn't though, because this is what got him cast in Batman. This is like what got him on the
this
map.
is what really got him on the map. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't
And he's
that
phenomenal.
Crazy.
And he is like, I don't know if he's been better since this movie.
Okay.
Sadly.
He's been up for so many Oscars post
Yeah,
this movie, my dude.
I will say, watching this though, like, this is absolutely perfect for him. He nails this. I don't think he's, like I'm saying, I don't know if he's ever done something like this since, to the point where it's like, that was just the only person that could have done this was him, in my mind.
I do think that he is a perfect fit for this, and offhand, like, there's no big name person that I would be like, yeah, they could have done this. Like, in my head, if this were to be redone, like, and it is being redone.
Which
by
Makes
Guadagnino.
0 sense to me, but
I kind of
we'll get to that. We'll talk about it later.
Since it is being recreated, I hope they pick like a relative nobody for Bateman's casting. Because I think it would be extremely distracting if it were anybody else.
Yeah. Do you actually think he's better in something other than this? Because I can't think of something.
I mean, he has like a very notable career, but frankly, off the top of my head, I don't feel like mentally going through it. I think it would be a waste of our time here.
I'm just asking you straight up without going through it. Can you think of one?
I honestly haven't seen a lot of the movies that he's been up for.
I stand by it then.
Well, that just means that I'm missing his filmography. That doesn't mean he hasn't been better. Anyway,
I
I'm
also
not
wanted to
beef
say
with you about
I had
that.
no idea this was written and directed by a woman, and I feel like that actually like changes so much.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't change my perception, but it opens up my eyes even more.
I think it needed a woman's touch.
Yeah, I think that this wouldn't have worked. But I had no idea. It makes total sense, like looking at it.
Yeah, she definitely pulls it into... Like, she keeps a lot of the dialogue the same, but pulls it to a different direction when with it all coming together.
There's definitely more of a satirical energy to it in the movie that I think the horror took away in the book. And it's... I think she probably made it more palatable than a man would, especially to any women watching this movie.
Yes.
Where it's just violence against women.
But she also like didn't pull punches either. Like it's still pretty disturbing, right? You know, like it's I don't know, I'm impressed. Well, overall, I think it's really cool. It's also cool because like we don't see women directors still get the same amount of like opportunity. So in the year 2000, that's a big deal. Yeah. And I think you're right. If a man directed this, we might have had the most despicable movie ever created.
I think it would have remained extremely gratuitous.
It's
like
just,
they really would have pushed the envelope, and I don't think this movie...
And they would have thought that Bateman was cool, most likely.
Probably. Sounds like a lot of people did.
Yeah. That's another thing Christian Bale does so well is this guy sucks. Like people complain about Leo as in the Wolf of Wall Street. Or they complain about Scorsese saying like he made him look too cool. And it's like, well, if you really watch the movie, he clearly hates this guy. But like Leo is a little too cool still.
Because Leo's charismatic.
But like Christian Bale is not cool. He's a pathetic little bitch in this, and it's awesome. He's so good. He's so annoying, and I feel like everyone knows a guy like this too, and all of them. And I feel like this movie still feels very timeless to me. Like I felt I related even more to it now than I did when I watched it the first time in like high school, because I think we're seeing maybe a rise in this archetype again.
Yeah.
And like that made this even more effective, even funnier to me this time around. So, but tell us more about any other background.
Just a few quick background facts that I didn't get to. So when this book came out and when they were developing it, there was quite the reaction to the violence to it. So American companies did not want to be associated with it. So they had to use European companies for a lot of like the clothing and cosmetics in the film. So like there are brand names we read a million times in the book, could not be in the movie. Rolex, for example, there's like a line in the book where he says, "Don't touch the Rolex." In the movie, they changed it to "Don't touch the watch" because they didn't want to be associated with that violence.
That's incredible. Nowadays, you know that they don't care. All these people, like, just a name drop is good for them, which is kind of funny.
Not with this shit. Not with how gratuitous the violence in this book was. There were also certain companies that wouldn't let him wear their clothing during the murder scenes.
Very funny. Yeah. Weird. I'm telling you, I think nowadays people would kill for that. They would not care at all. Like Nike would be so happy to see some dude in a tracksuit murdering someone in a movie.
Yike. And then finally, some outdoor shots were filmed in New York City, which obviously the film is set there. But a lot of filming took place in Toronto. But around the time that they were filming, there was a serial murderer, Paul Bernardo, who committed numerous murders and sexual assaults in Toronto, and he owned a copy of the book. So everyone in Toronto was really pissed that they were filming there. And the director, like she said later, like, I did not know that he had a copy of this book. I didn't know the connection.
Yeah,
so who's to say how we would have changed that?
That's tough because anytime, they use Toronto all the time to be New York City. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Yikes. Kind of funny, but not.
Yeah, it kind of is.
So was that the last fact?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do want to talk about the book specifically before we talk about the movie, because a lot of our commentary, at least Alex and I, will definitely be about the changes that the movie makes that make it successful or more successful than the book. So Alex, I know we said we didn't like it, but do you want to expound upon that? What you didn't like about it and your overall thoughts?
I knew from the very first chapter I was not going to enjoy this book, mainly with how it was written, and I think it was written like that on purpose. It's supposed to be this routine, mundane, boring life, because all of this for Patrick Bateman is just very typical for him, and that's what we're supposed to get from it. But in turn, it was extremely boring to read. And it was just large blocks of text that were really dense to get through because it's so detailed and so meticulous, everything that he does. But the amount of detail of clothing we had to read was paragraphs of describing a suit.
And it never stopped.
Every person.
It was every person through almost the entire book. So if you took that out, just the descriptions of clothing, you'd probably have a book that was 50 pages shorter.
Absolutely.
And does the satire not come through at all on it?
I think it kind of got to a point where I was over it. Yeah. I got the point of the satire. It didn't go over my head. I was I just don't want to read this anymore.
It lost its impact because it was so redundant to me.
Yeah. Understood. Because I think those moments in the movie are laugh out loud funny.
But they're not laugh out loud in the book at all.
Yeah.
I think
but you agree, in the way, in comparison, the obsession over materialist items and pretending he's not is very funny to me. And obviously his delivery is really good.
I think it's the delivery helps a lot because, again, a lot of it is direct quotes from the book that he's saying. When he's describing all of the musicians, those are very long chapters, so he's not saying the entire chapter, but they're pulling direct quotes. Similarly, a lot of his conversations with anybody that he's around, they're pulling direct quotes. His conversation, really the whole movie is very much
book. Yeah.
Almost entirely quotes from the book. It's just that the delivery really changes how you perceive them.
Yeah, and I think the book is told only from Patrick's perspective. We don't get to... In his head, he's the coolest person who's ever walked this earth. So it's very convoluted and not an accurate representation of who he is as a person. He's not likable. So I don't want to be in this man's head for 400 pages.
Is that how long it was?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was very unpleasant to be in that space for a very long time. And I think in the movie, you're able to see how other people are reacting to him, and even how Christian Bale's playing him he's not a cool dude, and you can see that. Where in the book, I think it didn't come across until more towards the end.
When other characters call him a dork at the end, that's when it finally comes across that that's how people perceive him.
They call him a dork at the beginning too. But let you know right at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really get that in the book. He's hot shit. He has a tan. His hair is done all...
He can do 1,000 crunches.
Gelled. He can do all these crunches. He goes to the gym how often?
2 hours a day.
Yeah, he has that whole skincare routine that goes on for several pages. That's funny.
He gets facials every other day.
Manicures.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the movie improves upon that significantly. And like we said, I think one of my main complaints, besides that the writing was just dry and uninteresting a lot of the time because it became so redundant, is obviously the violence, like we said, is extremely gratuitous, but it's also the sexual intercourse is also extremely gratuitous and perverted and just goes on way too long, way too long. It'll be like, well, then she licked her butt, and then she licked her face, and then they swapped, and she licked her crotch, and then her butt.
The
and
guy
then
who wrote
I
this sounds
jerked
like a real
and
weirdo.
then we swapped, and then she was on my face, and she was on my penis, and then we moved again, and then we were in this Eiffel Tower position, and then I was alone in the corner while they made out again, and I was stroking my own genitalia, and then I came back into play, and then I came in her mouth, and then she spit it in her mouth.
Like it was like
Pages,
8
pages,
pages
pages.
of like the
Back and
Description.
of
forth.
sex, and then like another 8 pages of these like horrible murders, like all in the same level of detail.
yep.
And like you're just sitting there reading it like, please make this stop.
I kept texting Alex and being like, how has there not been a murder yet? Because the first
Yeah.
murder comes into play after 50% of the book has gone on. It takes way too fucking long, and that is also a major
And
improvement.
in the movie,
that
it's got to be like
makes.
20 minutes in,
Yeah.
25
Yeah.
minutes.
They do that
with
so much
Paul.
better.
So much better.
And it is Paul is the first one that is like knowingly dead.
Yeah.
He's like stabbed some homeless people, but we don't necessarily know their fate. But like we know Paul is the first person we know is dead to my recollection. And yeah, that's literally after 50% of
Yeah.
the way. And I kept texting Alex being like, when is it gonna happen? I'm getting so bored. And she was like, don't worry, you'll still be bored when he starts killing people too. Like
Yeah.
it's just it gets worse somehow.
I finished this book before Hannah, so I kept waiting for her to get to this rat part. I didn't know how to ask whether or not you got to it without saying exactly what it was.
Well, because how do you go? Did you get to the sex scene with the rat?
Right. And the cheese.
Yep.
No, because the rat actually was there for a long time, and then he got another. There's a lot of rats.
And he kills
There's
the rats.
too many rats.
He,
The
like,
guy who wrote
starves
this sounds like
one,
a
and
weirdo.
He has to.
I don't
such
think
a
he's
freak.
okay.
No.
Like, can someone please check
Like,
on him? His loved ones. Actually, checked on his loved ones.
And do we feel like there was a point to the book? Like, is it trying to do the same thing the movie just does more successfully, or is it not as clear?
I think so.
I think so.
And it's the same satire as, like, affluent white men can get away with anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like consumerism
yeah.
in America. And then, yeah, like I think all of that is there. And I very much see how the writing style contributes to that. Like we said, it's just like not pleasant to read. So it's like I would have put it down had I not been reading for the podcast.
Okay.
Like,
Absolutely,
very-
100%.
Well, I appreciate you both doing it for this. And I hope it made the
sounds
movie
awesome.
watching experience more enjoyable.
I did think it was
Yeah.
funny knowing the lines, and like every time they would say one, I was like, "Oh, that was in the book." But then
Yeah.
it became like every line, so then I had to stop saying it.
I do think I liked the movie more having read the book.
Okay.
Yeah,
Weird.
Because I really didn't like the book, and the movie was
Oh, it's like
okay.
because it was a step up. I gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there anything else you guys want to say about the book, or anything you liked about the book?
There are a few points that I did think were kind of funny in the book. That one of them comes into play in the movie, some of it doesn't. There's the scene in the movie where he goes to strangle Lewis in the bathroom, and then Lewis is like, I knew you were in love with me. Like, I knew you were coming on to me, and I'm really into you too. And that is a reoccurring bit in the book where, like, they will run into each other in other places, and Lewis is like, why haven't we talked about this, Patrick? Like, I know we love each other. And it was just so funny to kind of see, like, he does that to all of these women, like, or he harasses all of these women. So for him to kind of get harassed was very funny, especially because he is blatantly homophobic. So it was like, there is also this other, like, reoccurring bit about how often they have to make reservations. And again, you see that a little in the movie, but it comes up so much more in the book. And there is, like, this entire chapter, which is 3 guys on the phone trying to decide where to go for dinner. And, like, they end up have a reservation, but then they miss the reservation because they're still chatting about somewhere else to go, and then they pick somewhere else, and then they miss that reservation, and then they invite people to meet them, but then they don't end up going, so then they're getting calls from the people that were supposed to meet them at the restaurant, like, why aren't you here? And also, I think you might have told me the wrong restaurant. And it's just this convoluted, hilarious 3-way call where they keep getting incoming calls that they have to switch the line to, and that made me chuckle. And I did wish that we got an excessively long scene in the movie about making reservations. I understand why it's not there.
There were plenty of reservation scenes, just not like
just
that.
Iconic.
Okay.
And we've all been there where we didn't know where we wanted to go as friends, and then we end up being like, just fucking order a pizza. But it's iconic.
Anything else you guys want to say about the book?
Anything you liked about the book?
No.
So don't read it. 1 out of 10, don't read the book, is what I'm hearing.
Alex gave it a 1 out of 5.
I don't think I've ever done that before.
Hey, now you know your limits, though.
It's true.
You planted a flag. That's what Seth told us on that one episode,
Yes.
right? You went to your boundaries.
Yeah,
and
we
then
now
you
know
found
this
them.
is one of our boundaries. Yeah, I would probably give it a 2 out of 5. I would rate it lower, but there were parts that I thought were funny, and I do think the commentary is successful enough. So I just think the first 50% of the book should be 15% of the book.
All right, well, let's talk about this movie then.
Yes.
So first, I was going to ask, I've seen this movie once beforehand, and I watched it with my mom, I'm pretty sure, which is hilarious in hindsight looking at this movie. And I remember not understanding the humor of it at all when I watched it. And just kind of walking away I think I thought I was getting a horror movie, and I walked away being that
What
was
the fuck?
odd. I don't really know what I was supposed to take away. I wasn't that entertained. Have you seen this movie before, Hannah?
I have definitely seen at least part of this movie. I'm assuming I watched it with my dad, but frankly, who's to say? Because I wouldn't watch this by myself. Mm-hmm. So it had to have been with one of my parents, I'm guessing.
But you've seen it, okay.
But I've seen a part of it. I don't think I finished it, but I very clearly remember the ending makes it ambiguous, or hints that none of it's real. So I knew that going into both. So I had plenty of spoiler. But yeah,
Not that it even matters, though.
I don't remember having any opinion on it.
Okay.
So
And Alex, this is your first time?
Yeah.
Okay.
with both.
Okay. And do we want to do 15-second summaries or go straight to plot summary?
We can just go straight to plot summary.
All right. Okay, in 1987, New York City investment banker Patrick Bateman spends most of his time dining at popular restaurants while obsessively maintaining his physical appearance and keeping up social facade for his fiancée, Evelyn Williams, as well as his circle of wealthy associates, most of whom he hates. At a business meeting, Bateman and his associates flaunt their business cards, obsessing over their designs. Enraged by the superiority of his colleague's Paul Allen's card, Bateman finds a homeless man in an alley to whom he initially offers help and then stabs him to death. At a Christmas party, Bateman makes dinner plans with Allen, who mistakes Bateman for another coworker. Allen has dinner with Bateman, and Allen arrogantly mocks Bateman while an incensed Bateman plays along and gets Allen drunk, lures him to his apartment, and then murders him with an axe. Private investigator Donald Kimball interviews Bateman regarding Allen's disappearance. Bateman invites 2 prostitutes, Christy and Sabrina, over to his apartment where they have sex. He then tortures them. Kimball, now suspicious of Bateman, conducts a second interview with him. Bateman invites his secretary, Jean, to his apartment where he prepares to kill her. Jean, who admits to a tendency to get involved with unavailable men, is apprehensive about their meeting due to the fact that Bateman is engaged to Evelyn. Bateman warns Jean that if she stays, he might hurt her, stating that he does not believe he can control himself. Jean leaves the apartment unsuspecting of the true meaning of Bateman's warning. Bateman rehires Christy and invites an acquaintance of his named Elizabeth to come over for the evening. Despite Christy's unease following their previous engagement, he drugs them in order to elicit a sexual encounter involving all 3. In the midst of intercourse, Bateman turns violent. Hearing Elizabeth screams and seeing her blood upon the bedsheets, Christy runs, discovering several corpses inside the apartment. Bateman chases her and drops a running chainsaw on her as she flees down the stairwell. Soon after, Bateman breaks off his engagement with Evelyn. That night, he stops at an ATM where he encounters a stray cat. He picks up the cat, and at that moment, the ATM displays the text, "Feed me a stray cat." As he prepares to shoot the cat with a handgun, a woman confronts him and he shoots her instead. Bateman flees the scene as police cars converge on the area. He shoots one of the officers and, much to his own surprise, blows up a patrol car by shooting at it. Running into a nearby building, he kills the front desk attendant and a janitor before finally escaping to his own own office building where he hides out for the night. Bateman calls his lawyer and leaves a frantic voicemail in which he confesses to about 40 murders. The following morning, Bateman arrives at Paul Allen's apartment intending to clean it. He finds the apartment vacant and for sale. Bateman has lunch with Kimball, who reveals that a colleague of Bateman's claims to have eaten dinner with him on the day of Allen's disappearance, which cements Bateman's alibi. In a state of hysteria, Bateman calls Jean, who informs him that his colleagues wish to meet with him for lunch. Disturbed by Bateman's agitated state, Jean explores his office and in a desk drawer finds a journal full of detailed graphic drawings of murder and mutilation. At lunch, Bateman sees Carnes, his lawyer, and mentions the voicemail he left the night before. Carnes mistakes Bateman for another man and laughs off the confession as a joke at Bateman's expense. Bateman clarifies who he is and again confesses the murders, but Kane says that he recently had dinner with Allen in London, rendering Bateman's claims impossible. An exhausted and uncertain Bateman returns to his friends. They discuss dinner reservations and muse about whether Ronald Reagan is a harmless old man or a psychopath. Bateman, unsure if his crimes are real or imaginary, realizes he will never receive the punishment and liberation from his dull lifestyle that he desires. Bateman narrates that he is in constant pain, that he wishes his pain inflicted on others, and that his confession has meant nothing. And that's our movie.
So Matt, give us your takeaway from the movie. Yay, nay, what worked, what didn't?
It's hysterical, I would say. Hysterical may be strong. It's very funny, and I laughed out loud multiple times throughout. So the humor hit me much more this time around. I think like the satire of it hit me much more, and I had a better understanding of what it was trying to do. I think it still drags in places, and it's by no means like one of my favorite movies. I wouldn't even say I loved it, but I definitely liked it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I chuckled. Like, I did laugh multiple times. And I just think the delivery is so good. And they do change the order of things a little bit. And I think it plays really well. And the way they incorporate his discussions of, like, music. There are entire chapters in the book that are just, like, this weird review of Genesis and Huey Lewis and Whitney Houston. Mm-hmm. And so the way that they do it in the movie is just like he's with someone and puts on music and has this like weird monologue about it.
And they have no interest in what
and they don't
saying.
care.
Yeah.
And it's so like mansplaining and awkward. I thought that was done so well. And I despised those chapters in the book, but it made me like see their merit and like giggle in the movie.
And Alex, what's the consensus?
I liked it. I probably will never watch it again, but that's okay. I did like kind of how the movie was a lot more like concise and like palatable and had a little bit more of a plot where the book just felt like a long rambling. Mm-hmm. I could see kind of where this story was going a little better. And my favorite change that they made in the movie was this music. How he was like monologuing to someone who could not care less, and that's how I felt reading it in the book.
Yes.
So I really identified with those characters.
And that almost seems like that was the intent in the book, except you were the
one suffering.
Yeah.
What's it called when you're a I can't think of the word. Like, your audience, not a hostile audience. You're just like a trapped audience. I can't think of the word. There's a special word for it.
Who's to say?
Well, I'll come up with it. But that was you as the
English
reader.
Teacher, staff.
I know. I'm struggling. I'll come
Olivia,
up
where
with it
are you
later.
at, girl?
But okay, so we all liked this, and I think there's a lot to talk about. Like, what is this movie actually trying to do, and what it's trying to say? So let's get through what we liked quick, and then dive into these themes.
I thought all of his narration was interesting. I think it, again, takes some of the things in the book that I was like, shut the fuck up, and makes it funny because of the way he delivers it. Just like, when he goes through the skincare routine, I do this, and then I do that, and then I do that, and then I do that, and then I do that. And when you're reading, that's so dry, but when it's a movie, it like gets funnier the more things he lists.
It helps the Christian Bale's voice, then like whatever, he's like putting on a performance that almost makes the acting seem bad. Does that make sense? Like, and it's so funny and it works so well. Like, it almost, the way he talks doesn't seem like good acting, but it seems perfect for this role. And it like makes it even funnier.
He's really socially awkward.
Yeah. Even internally, he's socially awkward, though.
Yes. Well,
he's repressed.
I think some of that narration is really supposed to highlight like the depersonalization, derealization that he's experiencing. Like, especially some of the narration towards the end. Like, he very much is like, who is Patrick Bateman? like, I don't know. And I feel like I'm kind of like observing myself from beyond, or like I don't feel like my surroundings are real and feeling like detached from the world. I think he does a really good job with those narrations and making those feelings a bit clearer in the movie than they might be in the book.
I think he did a really good job, like, just playing this really awkward man, where in the book, from his perspective, he's, like, really pulling the wool over, like, the detective, or, like, he's so effortless in all these, like, social situations, but in the movie, like, he's so awkward and so uncomfortable, and, like, that's who he, like, Patrick Bateman is as a person. That just translated so much better, like, in a visual context than reading it.
Yes.
It's because you're not on his side. You're not within him now. Because every time he said, I'm returning some movies,
he does that in the book all the time, and it's always kind of funny, but I laughed out loud in the movie.
Yeah.
But it also kind of gives you this whole idea that, like, people really can just get away with weird shit if you just say weird stuff. Like, most people in a social situation don't want to rock the boat, even if you say something crazy. So I almost feel like that would work, like, externally. Like, yeah, they might question it later, but I have to return some movies, and saying that a bunch of times, people will just be like, oh, okay, and, like, let you walk. I kind of,
like, can't figure out if we're supposed to take away what you just said. Like, yeah, this is kind of showing that we don't notice these weird things because we're so, like, self-involved.
I think we do notice.
Or, like, they just aren't worth pursuing because bystander effect and all that jazz. I don't know if it's trying to do that, or if it's, like, leading to the more, like, he's psychotic and this isn't actually what he's saying or doing.
That's possible, too. But I think if they wanted to go that route, he would have been smoother with the detective in his head. Like, from what we see, it definitely is not in his head, because he does a terrible job with the detective, and it's really funny. Like, he just, like, stumbles all over himself. Right?
Yeah, he definitely does, and he does in the book, too. I don't know. It's really hard for me to gauge some of the things, if they're doing that to mean something, or if it's just, again, he's psychotic.
Well, fun fact about the movie that I was told by a friend of mine in college. He told me this multiple times. Okay. So I assume it's a fact. And I look it up. I don't really know, because now you didn't have it, but he told me this a bunch, so I trust Jake.
Okay, hurry up.
He said that they had Christian Bale shoot the scene 3 times, or most scenes 3 times. One where he was convinced that he was doing the murders, one where he wasn't sure, and one where he thought he was innocent.
It was Willem Dafoe.
It was Willem Dafoe, okay.
Who did dramatically different, like, readings of it.
And then I heard the director just picked whichever ones they wanted.
And yeah, they kind of, like,
interspliced
them in and out.
Okay, it was Willem Dafoe, not Christian Bale.
So you don't know if he believes him or not, or, like, if he's on to him or not.
That makes total sense, and that puts us back in the perspective of Christian Bale. Love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. See, that's a fun fact. I'm shocked that you didn't bring that one up.
I was going to bring it up when I talked about Willem Dafoe somewhere.
Nice. Well, you're welcome.
I was going to ask if you can see that.
Yes, I can. And it is very confusing as the audience, and I like it. It makes you uncomfortable and, like, uneasy.
There's some points where he does his, like, creepy Willem Dafoe smile, and you're like, this is ominous.
I'm somewhat of a scientist myself.
But then the next one, he's, like, pretty, like, chill and friendly, and you're like, that smile seems real.
All right, let's talk about some themes in this movie, because I think it's critical. We can talk about things we don't like too, but like, we got to talk about what actually happens in this movie and what we believe happens. So I feel like he didn't kill anybody. I think he wants to kill people, and that's the whole journal he writes in, is, like, his imagining of doing all of this, and he clearly, like, really wants to, but he hasn't yet. And maybe he will, but that's what I'm seeing. What do you both think?
I don't think he's killed anyone. I don't know what evidence there is to really support that he has killed anyone besides his own account of it, which we already know we can't trust.
That's how I feel as well. I also left the book especially being like, oh, he didn't kill anybody. And then the movie, I think it takes a few of those moments or scenes out, but I still think, like, the fact that he's hallucinating the ATM telling him to feed it a cat. Like, that is pretty fucking clearly not happening.
From the opening scene of the movie, the very opening scene before his whole morning monologue, he yells at the bartender, like, I want to gut you, basically, and she doesn't respond.
Yeah,
so
like,
even there, right away, there's a
things
clue.
He's saying that people just don't hear or react to at all.
Now, how do you think that plays into the theme of like affluent white man can get away with anything?
Well, that's where that's why I brought it up earlier. Is I think it, like, to me, starts to muddy that, because he's not getting away with anything. He's not doing those things in my reading of it. I think you can have it either. Like, I understand how people could take it that way, but I like don't have that reading, because I am very sure he hasn't done shit. He's just an awkward guy that they're like, Bateman, or whatever.
I think I read both in a way that it's like, I can still read that, because while watching the movie, that's like the point it's trying to make is like these even if we look at like the Occupy Wall Street movement later, like these fucking assholes did get away with murder when it came to that situations, and the way that they basically were able to make money off of the absolute crippling of our economy and people like starving in the streets, basically. And they did get away with it. So I think it's kind of playing on the fact that like these guys do get away with this kind of stuff all the time. However, in this story, he didn't actually murder people, but like it's almost like kind of saying he could. And like, and that's the way I'm reading it, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be that he actually did it, but the point it's making still stands.
I think maybe that point stands better in the movie, because in the book, like, from his perspective, he could get away with anything, but that's like not. I think you're in his head, so you know that he's fucked up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you feel with that? Like, do you feel like that theme is successful, or is it muddied?
When I was reading the book, and I guess even in the movie, I did feel like it was somewhat successful in that, you know, at least in his mind, like, he is getting away with all of it, and that's the only perspective that we're getting from it, and it's not he's an unreliable narrator. I guess, like, I didn't get that action. It wasn't successful.
Okay.
I didn't get it at all.
In the movie.
In the movie.
Okay.
And in reading it, too.
I think I also know this better because I'm just very aware of the movie, because it's been so famous for a long time, that I, like, didn't pick up that reading myself watching it. I'd already, like, had that in my head going in.
I, like, made the assumption that is part of what it was trying to do. I just, to me, didn't.
But I mean, it is also very critical of like this yuppie Wall Street
it's very
personality,
critical of that.
Yeah.
Specifically men. And another kind of interesting thing I took away from this is like his politics were kind of uncertain.
They're all
because
over.
there's a moment. There's a point where he says a lot of very, very liberal things about like the things we need to fix, and then he throws in and we need to get back to our traditional morals, which is like a very traditionalist / I would even say fascist thing, but. To me, I was almost reading that as like a critique of like the very performative, rich, liberal, like yuppie style. Like a liberal that I think we see plenty of people that are that, right? And I thought that was kind of interesting to see that critique. But then to also kind of throw the fascism part in there was interesting. So it wasn't just like, rich Republican, we're going after him, you know?
Which is definitely how I like read him beyond those bits.
I think so, but I also think that he is going to just anything that justifies the means or means to an end.
I also
right?
think he like likes to be contrarian. So if that's like he's just trying to like disagree.
He's a devil's advocate kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
He does that a lot.
I think he wants people to think very highly of him, so he says these like what he thinks are intelligent things, so people are like have to like stop and think and be like, oh, that Patrick Bateman, he's so insightful, or like he really pays attention to like this, and that's not like what everyone else in his group is doing.
They really are all just putting on a performance. That's him, his friends, the women, all of them. And that's also, I guess, what the critique is this lifestyle, this performative lifestyle they're all like trying to live. And you talked about before materialism and consumerism as a part of it.
Very, very much a criticism of consumption and consumerism. Like whether that be the sex and the drugs, the material items like the clothes that they talk about a lot, the douchey restaurants that they're going to constantly and how important it is to them to have gotten in at said restaurants. Like
Gotten the res.
that shit is all over this.
It's so funny. I'm sorry, I'm laughing thinking about it. I will also say there's some irony to this because like we go to fancy restaurants, and also the way that we talk about movies on this podcast, I think very much sounds like him talking about music sometimes. So like I think I just did it now, being like, well, it really shows, you know, the performative nature of the upper class liberal in New York City, and it's like how can it not, right?
I don't
like
want to be compared
I mean,
to Patrick
but you
Bateman.
are, and it
Patrick
just
Bateman would absolutely have a podcast, guys.
I know he would.
So would.
Nowadays, yeah.
Yeah. If this were...
He would have a financial help podcast.
Yes.
But also with like...
Fashion advice. He'd have a fashion advice podcast.
And then he would be very Joe Rogan-esque.
I was thinking that, but again, his politics are so... They could be anything. Maybe nowadays because it's easier to make money going like very right-wing with it. But I don't know. I don't want to label him any specific politics because I like that he's... I like that both... But I like that the liberal side of him and the like conservative side of him are both critiqued. I think that that's like pretty critical for this movie, especially because it's performative no matter what.
That's exactly because it's performative. It's not really even about how he believes.
Yes.
'Cause we don't know what he believes because he's performing.
Yep.
Like everything he says or does in some way is a performance. And I think a lot of times that performance and that like image he's trying to project outward falters, and that's why he gets really awkward.
Yeah, I agree. And clearly he's just completely awkward anyway.
Well, yeah. He's definitely an awkward man.
He is like... This caricature is so good for me because I do just think this still completely exists. I think about those guys. Hanna and I were in Amsterdam, and we were in a restaurant a Thai restaurant in Amsterdam.
These guys were so Patrick
and
Bateman.
these guys were Patrick Bateman. Yeah, we were sitting there. Hanna and I looked at each other, and we said we're not going to speak a word.
Yeah,
like
we both went.
We verbally were like we're going to listen to this hour-long conversation between these four guys. We didn't speak a word.
Shit.
And we had the best time of our life listening to these guys talk, one-upping each other, especially this one. Anything someone said, he would have oh, I did that, but also it actually was this much more. Yeah. It was straight up like the card scene, oh my god, eggshell white.
Yeah, no, it was literally
the subtle off-white texture.
Yeah, at first this guy was like in the British Navy or something, and then suddenly he became a higher up in the Navy, and then suddenly he was involved with testing something dangerous and training people.
And because someone else would bring up, something about this is well, actually
I pushed the button.
Yeah, it was basically that.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Great. One of my favorite dinners I've had with you.
Yeah, it was so fucking funny. And their politics were so weird and confusing too. Very Patrick Bateman-esque.
Yes. And they were all kind of douchebags. This one particular guy was just more of a douchebag. He was my favorite. I had to keep myself... I wanted to go ask them questions. In my head, I wanted to be like, I just overheard you, because I just wanted to interact and see what other insane shit I could get.
I wanted to be like, what is your job?
Yeah, what do you do?
What do you do? Should ask for a business card.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
See who has the best one.
Eggshell white.
Raised text.
I'm sorry. There are scenes in this movie that are so funny, and that first 45 minutes is so funny. I think it loses it in this back half, which it's trying to, but that scene in particular is unbelievable. And kind of makes me want to rewatch it, Alex. I don't know about you. You could just show somebody that scene and be like, look at this. They might not get it, but you would. So
I had a question as to how you guys read something.
Sure. And
it's more prevalent in the book, but it's in the movie. There's a lot about confusion about names. In the book, they'll be and they did it once or twice in the movie, they'll be over there's Pete. No, that's Mark. And they'll fight over who this person is. Or people talk to Patrick and think he's Marcus, and then later they think he's someone else. And then they'll talk to him about that annoying Patrick Bateman. How do you interpret that? What do you think the intent is there?
I have two readings. At first, I thought they were going for a Fight Club type thing. He was confused about who he was. I don't think that's the case now, though. I think the second reading goes along with something I pointed out is that all of their business cards say vice president. Mm-hmm. They're all working basically the exact same bullshit job where they're clearly not working at all. They're too busy making reservations and cheating on our partners, right? And so it's like it's just such bullshit, like what they do in general, that no one can even keep track of who's who and who does what, because it doesn't matter because it's clear that like they're not really working, and then two, everyone's like too preoccupied with their own self-image and their own self to even realize who their own like coworkers are. Right? That's what I'm seeing, Alex? I don't know. Do you feel similar?
I took that more in the book, but then I think in the movie, as I was thinking more about it, I was almost wondering if like he's just so forgettable, because whenever anyone else was talking about Patrick Bateman, to his face, like, he's so weird. Like, he's so awkward. He's so quiet. So I was like, maybe they're just forgetting him. Because I don't know if they do it to anyone else in the book or the movie where they mix up
to their face. Yeah, I don't think it's anyone else to their face. Like, they
so maybe he's actually
just
a loser, and we're seeing his perspective, and he talks so much to us. But I'd be curious, how much does he really talk to any other character in this movie? Like, he talks to some of the girls, he talks to like some of his guy friends and his secretary, but like, I guess what's real? How much is he actually speaking to them? I'd like to look into it, honestly.
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, I agree with what you guys were saying, but I'm also thinking about like the pieces where he says like he doesn't, like, he blatantly comes out and says that he has confusion over like who Patrick Bateman is. Like, what and who he is and how attached he is to reality. I think that plays into that as well. Like, who really is he? Because no one else can keep track of his identity and how he's presenting. So he certainly can't. I don't know if that...
No, I see it.
Plays into that, too.
It's a hard read. I would say that a lot of this movie is actually, like, there's not a complete answer anywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I think I go more towards the thematic analysis of it, because that feels like more of the purpose. And like, I don't think there's supposed to be a complete read.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you, do you think this is a good example of mental health in horror movies? Like, do you think this is a good example of psychopathy, or I know, again, not a real term, but... Or a personality disorder?
Well, I'm certainly not familiar with anyone who has committed murders or not, and like thought that they did.
You're allowed to diagnose a movie character, though. It's not unethical.
I mean, clearly in the context of this movie, he is experiencing psychosis. I mean, the ATM is prime example number one. He's seeing an ATM telling him to feed it a cat. In the book, he says that a park bench followed him for 6 blocks.
So I was thinking schizophrenia, which is what this sounds like.
Yeah, so psychosis is
a type
hallucination. So psychosis can be associated with other diagnoses, but like, yes, he probably, in that case, would have schizophrenia along with probably a number of personality disorders.
But schizophrenia is usually not lined up with, other personality disorders. I was going to say usually isn't lined up with violence, I thought.
Yeah, there isn't like a high correlation with violence for any mental health diagnoses. I think you're much more likely to hurt yourself than other people for any
And well, again, it's
diagnosis
possible he didn't hurt
the line.
anybody. So
Yes. But yeah, so just to clear up, psychosis includes delusions and hallucinations. And you can have like major depressive disorder with psychotic features, which like I know someone who has that diagnosis. They have always struggled with depression and then, had a psychotic episode, but like they're not schizophrenic.
No, that makes sense.
They're like different traits that have to be attributed to various diagnoses. Like you need to have a certain amount of them and yada, yada, yada.
So that all being said, that leads me into another question I have, which is about the last line in the movie, which is about how his confession will never be heard. And I think that kind of ties in all the themes together. So I want to know thoughts on what do we think that means, that he's like not ever going to be heard? Because I do think
I didn't process that at all. So I need like the actual word.
The actual quote.
Give you any answer.
Understood. Well, I'll talk about it for a second while you look it up, because that, I think, goes back to the whole idea of he could get away with anything, because when he goes to confess how he really feels and tries to like get that help, it's just completely ignored. And he even says that he like he's suffering and he wants everyone else to feel his suffering, but he's not actually going to like break away from this suffering he has. And it seems like no one is going to help him. And he might not even act on it still. But did you find the quote?
There are no more barriers to cross. All I have in common with the uncontrollable and the insane, the vicious and the evil, all the mayhem I have caused and my utter indifference toward it I have now surpassed. My pain is constant and sharp, and I do not hope for a better world for anyone. In fact, I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape. But even after admitting this, there is no catharsis. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. No new knowledge can be extracted from my telling. This confession has meant nothing.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means. It feels cool, and I feel like maybe emotionally I understand what it's going for, but like I cannot piece together. That part goes over my head. Did either of you like pull anything from it? Or I could just be dumb.
I think it was, there were other moments, or at least one other moment that I remember with Jean where he, you know, in the movie, he's like holding the nail gun to the back of her head, and then he's like, I think you should go. Bad things are going to happen if you stay. To her, like, she's hearing him say that, and he's like, oh, you're going to break my heart. Like, those are the bad things. And he's talking about, like, murdering her. I think it's kind of talking about, like, his perception of himself versus other people's perception of him and how wildly different they are. So he literally called the lawyer, confessed all these things, and the lawyer's like, that was the funniest thing I've ever heard, dude. Like, that was a riot. We have to do that again. And
sorry, there's big lightning outside. We won't cut this out because it's funny.
We all got so distracted. It was the craziest strike of lightning because it lasted for like multiple seconds, and it's just like the sky lit up purple.
There's the thunder. Do you hear it? All right.
I hope that all of the thunder and rain is in the background of this episode, so they get the vibe.
I like what you said there, Alex, I have to say.
Yeah, I think a lot about it is like you were saying, like he's been living his life behind a mask, and the mask is slipping, but he's still not getting punished for that. I think he's like...
No, I see that. And maybe it's not over my head, because that makes total sense.
I feel like
even when he wants the mask to slip, he's trying to like break out. People are still basically just like, that's just Bateman.
Yeah.
You know,
like everyone's so indifferent to the violence or the threats.
And they're all up their own asses. I think it goes back to what I said before. Everyone is like performative and everyone's too awkward to even like question something, because it's easier to just ignore. Or because they're already paying too much attention to themselves and the materialistic things going on.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like, none of these people are, like, actually friends with each other. I think it's even questionable whether or not they like each other. So, like, if you're just thinking about, like, a random acquaintance you may have, and, like, one time he says something really weird, you're like, that's weird, but I don't care enough about you to question this further, so I'm just going to ignore it.
Yeah, no, I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
sad enough. But
I also think, like, very on the surface of this quote, like, he hates his life, and he doesn't know who he is, and he's miserable. Like, nothing is interesting anymore. Even murder has become mundane and monotonous to him. And if he can't be happy or interested, why should anyone else be? Hence the... like, I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape.
So, last question then. We think he's going to act on it?
Assuming he hasn't acted on it yet?
Yes. We all believe he hasn't acted on it, right? Do we think he's going to?
I think there's potential.
Yeah, I think there's potential.
I don't think he's going to. I think he's a little bitch.
I think he's a little bitch, but, like, there's clearly potential. This man is,
I think there's potential,
violent,
but
thoughts and tendencies. So
I think if I've learned anything about this movie, though, is that he is kind of spineless. They literally say it over. Not that killing people shows you have a spine, but still, I think he is and maybe I'm being mean because maybe he is actually mentally ill, but it's hard to read it. I like reading it that he's just a douchebag.
I think that's what they're kind of trying to go for in the movie, that he's just an awkward douchebag, and that's why some of the examples of the what seems to me like psychosis isn't in the movie, like the park bench followed me for 6 blocks, or...
because then you start feeling empathy for him.
Yeah.
And the movie doesn't want us to.
No.
And I think a woman director definitely doesn't want us to. No. And I agree with her.
Do you guys think he actually tried to strangle Lewis?
Or was coming on to him.
Right.
Like,
or even like
No,
that was him like acting on these like fantasies, and then it goes horribly wrong for him.
So you are totally right, because I felt the whole time Christian Bale plays this like as a completely repressed gay man. There's like multiple times throughout where I was like, okay, he really seems like he's in the closet. And so like, what if, yeah, you're right, he was actually coming on to him? That's genius. And that's why he's so uncomfortable when he realizes what he's doing. He runs away versus actually trying to strangle. I love that reading. Sorry, I mean, do you see that too, or no? No, you didn't at all.
I didn't get that that Patrick Bateman was gay.
Really?
Did you?
No, but I
saw him as like the classic like I'm definitely straight, like trying to like hide it. It's and you see it in like media more in movies, I think, versus real life, which is maybe why I'm like seeing it that way. But it's like the classic like someone who is like hating on a lifestyle while secretly being like we see a lot of like Republican politicians that
I
way,
wouldn't be surprised if he were asexual, if anything.
That is
because I feel like all of these people are just like objects to him. Like, I think he's, if anything, like when these women are like hooking up in front of him, he's deriving pleasure from the fact that they're going to be hurting, not because they're hot women in front of him.
He does like looking at himself though.
Yeah, he's like so narcissistic.
But that might be narcissism, yeah.
Joy from his looks.
Yes. When I mentioned personality disorder,
that was one of them.
Yeah.
But you thought maybe he was coming on to Lewis, though? Or no, that was just my reading?
No, I don't think.
Okay.
I could see why you would think that way, but I don't think he was actually coming on to him. Like, I think he really was like, I'm gonna choke this man, fuck you.
Okay.
And then just didn't commit.
Yeah, it's spineless.
Yeah.
I think there's so many readings, though, and that's what's kind of fun about this movie, is you really can see it from so many different angles.
Something that I did want to ask you guys is, do you think Christian Bale's performance was deserving of acting nominations? Because people have like a revisionist, mindset that this should have been nominated for an Oscar.
I think it would never in 1,000 years happen. I don't think it would even happen in 2025. But yeah, I think that this was at least deserving a nomination. I think I've rarely seen a performance like this one, and I think he knocks it out of the park. So
I agree. I also think he should have been nominated.
I don't really watch enough Oscar nominees to
have an opinion.
To know.
Yeah.
That's okay. Hannah and I are your Oscar residents here, so.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree.
When we did our horror and the Oscars episode, we'd asked people who they think should have been nominated, and a couple people said Christian Bale from this movie.
And they were right, and I probably wouldn't have thought about it until I watched it again recently. And it's like, it never would, though, because it's such a weird performance. And like I said, it almost comes across like he's not acting well. But it's with the way it works within the script and the way that it's, I guess, presented, it works just so well. Mm-hmm. But it's like unique, and I think is probably over a lot of people's heads, to be honest. Maybe not now, it's called film, so. Yeah,
it really is. So I think we can
rate it. Let's do it. I'm giving this movie a 7.5 out of 10.
Damn it. I was going to give it a 7.5 out of 10.
We're on the same page then?
Yeah.
I usually try to stick to whole numbers, but I didn't feel good about a 7 or an 8.
On Letterboxd, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5.
That's probably where I'll be.
Well, I already gave it that.
Oh, you did? I haven't done mine yet.
I'd give it a 6 out of 10.
Reasonable. That's fine.
That's considerably better than our 1 out of 5.
Much better than the book, guys.
Yeah. Much better.
And you're not a huge movie person in general. So, we got to find something really good for you then.
I'm thinking, I would tell someone to, watch this movie, though.
Good. Okay.
Fuck yeah. That's a win.
Yeah, that's how I feel. It's like it's not one that I'd be like, oh, we got to watch this, but like I think it's one everyone should like watch
it,
once, you know. It is like as big as it is for a reason.
Yeah.
I still don't understand the reason for a sequel because I think this movie's like very timeless in my mind, even with all the old technology.
Well, I know it has like a bullshit sequel, but it's a remake.
No,
not
I meant a
sequel.
remake. I see no reason for a remake because I think this movie holds up to today's feelings. Like today's cultural zeitgeist is scarily not that different than what this movie's presenting.
Yeah.
I agree. And yet, I like Luca Guadagnino. So I'm interested to see what happens.
I do too. I don't know. I just don't think it's needed. Like you could just put this on. And I don't know how you're going to elevate and or change enough for it to be worth it and not almost seem like a parody of itself. Because like even trying to update this to today's pop culture it's going to be awkward. It's going to be weird and feel odd. Putting, you know, social media into this world is not going to work. Into the world of Patrick Bateman, you know, like it's the second he, you know, starts getting on Twitter and they bring up Elon Musk, it's going to be a problem for me.
Oh, it's over.
They're just going to talk about crypto the whole time.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I already know
time.
100 people like that in my life. I already have seen this, so it's like, think about it. Like, it is just going to be crypto. But I think that misses the whole point.
Wouldn't change.
Because we talk about Chapel Roan. What do you think? Wouldn't that be funny?
He's going to talk about Tesla a lot.
Yeah, Elon Musk. Honestly, he'd still be obsessed with Donald Trump.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's one thing that wasn't so much in the movie. He loves Donald Trump in the book.
He loves
it would actually be kind of funny if
Donald
Bateman hated President Trump, though, and like loved pre-President Trump. I could see that. You know?
Yeah. That would be a fun twist.
That would just be like, just...
Watch him be the biggest Kamala Harris fan.
Oh, God,
we missed another theme.
No.
It was definitely also partially about Reagan, and they made that very clear at the end where they asked if Reagan was a psychopath or not. And like, how could he put this front on? And I think you maybe could read that a lot of this movie was criticizing Reagan
era.
Yeah, and I kind of fucked up not bringing that up until now. So I apologize.
The movie is very much a criticism of the 80s, so it is criticism of Reagan era.
And him and the U.S. putting on a mask and acting like they're one thing when they're not also. So, damn, I suck for not thinking of that until right now.
Guys, I have to do it over again.
Yeah, redo it. Everyone knows where I'm going with that.
Time.
We've talked about Reagan a lot, so...
Yeah,
but I'll throw that in at the end.
We do throw around Reagan's name a bit on this podcast.
Well, big thunder. There's no way everything goes back to Reagan. Like straight up, any art you can in some way bring any art post Reagan you can bring back to Reagan in some way.
And on that
and
note,
9/11. So.
I've been Hannah.
I've been Matt Hanna.
And we've had Alex.
Yay.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening, everyone out there. Fuck Ronald Reagan.
Thank you for listening to Horror Hour with the Hannas. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever else you can find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, where we post episodes and shorts. You can follow us at Horror Hour with the Hannas on TikTok and Instagram, as well as at Horror Hour on Blue Sky for more content. If you like the podcast, please follow and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!